All right, walk along Charles Street, taking a look at the beginning of Clifton Wallace Park and the 500 block of West Charles, this portion of my neighborhood. The park has a couple of amenities, including a little free library, access to a little bit of playground equipment, some seating, some lighting, and is close to a food delivery service located at the former corner store. Some other historic homes, including the one that I rent here in the 400 block of West Charles. These two homes were built as twins. It's very interesting to how they are mirror images of each other originally, but they've evolved since. Some interesting elements in historic homes here, including layers of privacy in the landscape elements and in the hedge, creates sort of barriers up between public and private. The porches all line up because of a uniform setback, and that makes it interesting for neighborliness. They also create microclimates, so porches are about 10 degrees less humid or hot than surroundings. Everything's in bloom right now on Labor Day. Alleys are interesting too in this neighborhood because of the layers of history that they reveal. Things like coal doors, access chutes, servants' quarters or granny flats or accessory dwelling units, stepping stones, hitching posts from the horse and wagon era. Looking further close to Liberty Street, we're still in the 400 block. A couple more interesting homes under renovation recently along Liberty Street, former servants' quarters and former upper middle class homes. Being restored and being rented out as student apartments for the nearby Ivy Tech. Former First Church of Christ scientist, now all apartment lofts, fulfilling much of that demand for apartments close to Ivy Tech. Interesting to have apartment buildings interspersed in between several homes. There is a lot of surface parking, however, in this part, this 300 block, and that does service a number of the downtown businesses as well as the Ivy Tech population, both faculty, staff, and students. So it is quite a lot of parking. Different views down the alleys lead to other neighborhoods and other vistas, as well as garage parking that services the convention center and the hotel. Looking further at Charles and Franklin, I always like to take pictures of street signs because they appear in your camera roll. Kind of a nice tip if you're trying to locate videos. This is the former Federal Park. It's right behind the former post office next to Ivy Tech, which is the former Ball Corporation headquarters. There are postcard views of the old Federal Park that are interesting to compare to what's here now. It's now part of the convention center property, and it's still a very nice green oasis in this portion of the downtown. You can see the back of the post office here. Much of it was renovated during the time in which this was the Ball Corporation headquarters, and the convention center and the Ball Corp headquarters kind of meshed together. Ivy Tech and the convention center are a good presence here in this portion of the downtown, and the convention center does have some lovely flowers out this time of year. Ratio Design renovated the former Ball Corporation headquarters, and now it is home to a lot of Ivy Tech labs, offices, and classrooms, including the former lower-level parking garage. The convention center occupies the former post office. We can see examples of the artistic utility boxes here as well. We go deeper into the core downtown. This is the Geiger block or Geiger block. Wonderful example right in front of the former Hotel Roberts building, which is now 55, age 55 and above apartments. Geiger block is interesting because it has some wonderful upper floor apartments. And as well as shops and restaurants on the main floor. You can see examples of this type of building across Chicago and Brooklyn and Philadelphia. It's an ironclad building, so it has some of the old marks from the forges in which these ironclad portions of the building were cast. Looking up, there's some interesting materials and elements. Looking across, there is surface parking, unfortunately. But there are some wonderful details to look at with these buildings, going to tell you about their history and how they were made, as well as some interesting components that are left behind in layers of history, doorknobs and stickers and urban art and things like that. Back alleys are interesting because they tell more about the history of buildings. They tell how people live up in the upper floors. They tell a lot about really the lifeblood of some of these buildings. And again, alleys give views and vistas to other neighborhoods and other buildings that might be nearby or might be part of the landscape. Murray Building, right at Walnut and Charles, a taller Beaux-Arts building from 1903, formerly known as the Jones Block, tall, imposing building on the southwest corner. Wonderful building with a lot of different offices and artist studios in the upper floor. Caffeinery has a coffee shop on the main floor, as well as a jewelry store, legislative offices, and the like. The Murrays have really maintained this building and have included much of their history on the plaques that you see outside. All of those became part of the Pokemon Go game a couple of years ago, as all of these different signs of any National Register building are layered into the Google Places directory and become part of the Pokemon Go game. Angry parking on Charles Street, some outdoor seating opportunities, some bike posts and bike stanchions there. One of these include the Bike Muncie logo, which is designed by me. Looking further south now, looking actually north again, a corner of Charles and Walnut, as it appeared in the 1950s. Until Woolworth's building occupied that northeast corner. Charles and Walnut today is home to the We're Trying Collective mural, which is painted on the side of the Mark III Tavern. This is a mural by 4 artists, originally from Muncie, who sought to memorialize the victims of the Pulse nightclub massacre. And so it is a gathering spot, a very well-photographed, very Instagram spot in Muncie where folks like to take their selfies in front of the mural, and it's visible in a lot of different vistas. Much of Walnut can be closed down for events, the First Thursday Arts Walk events, the larger art fairs that we have, so Walnut Street can be closed down for those particular events. You can see a lot of the brick and stormwater and plant detailing, as well as rumble strips and the like, are integrated into the current streetscape design, which is by Flat Plant Resources, a local firm. The mural finds ways of finding you and kind of peeks behind buildings, around buildings, and the like. Looking further south, there is some developable land right here next to Cannon Commons. Upper floor uses continue to be very successful. This does have a small sliver of land, though. Looking south to the roundabout and the hotel, we can compare those to historic views. Again, these are wonderful historic views, kind of show us what was happening at the front corner of Walnut and Adams, Walnut and Charles around the turn of the century into the 1920s and 30s and 40s. There is an arts wall, which can have rotating exhibits. These are some portraits showcasing some local artists and local personalities. Streetscape elements include a lot of different planters, bollards, permeable pavers, and a center drain. So all the stormwater drains to the center of the street as opposed to gutters. Cannon Commons has a band shell. This is by project by Rondell Arnsberger Associates. It's home to our Three Trails music series throughout the summer and into the fall, so look forward to lots of free events there. It's also a fantastic place to watch the sunset. The YMCA will be soon abandoned, so that is a project site and need further reconsideration. Cannon Commons has some more elements, including the roundabout and some stormwater elements. This is Waiting the Passing of the Buffalo by Cyrus Dolan, creating sort of a landmark here on the south side of town. He has an interesting history that he's moved around over the past few years around the downtown. The Marriott Courtyard Hotel is a very nice anchor for the convention center area, very important for the local economy and for visitors. Small garden outside of the hotel there, with a lot of surface parking right next to the convention center and the hotel. CAP does own a building south of the roundabout for exhibits. There is some developable land as well south of the roundabout. Muncie Music Center does occupy this eastern side of the roundabout, right next to the Cannon Commons Park. So, and then looking back north, we see Walnut Street, and we could compare that to historic views of Walnut Street. The Naughton Building site is now the Defer Varan Lawyers Building. This was a department store in the 1920s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, and 70s. And so the McNaughton was a large, imposing retail structure. It was attempted to be converted in 1991 into the Muncie City Hall, but the efforts were unsuccessful. Pickle Peach has a partnership with the Forever Rand to use the alleyway as sort of a beer garden, if you will. This is the next block of Charles. This is 100 East Charles, including the Rose Court building, which is an arcade-style building that you see in London and other European cities. Here's a view inside. That vista looking back along Charles Street is interesting. We do find historic views comparing. You can see the McNaughton building in place. Further east, the former Rivoli Theater site is now home to the Ball Brothers Foundations. The Rivoli Theater is where a lot of Muncie folks saw their first-run movies into the 1990s. However, it was demolished in the early 1990s. Looking further east, more examples of the art on boxes. Looking back to the Muncie Music Center, we have the former J.C. Penney building. Unfortunately, this block does have a lot of surface parking supporting the bank, the mutual bank there. So quite a lot of surface parking supporting these facilities. A lot of underperforming or underutilized asphalt. YWCA facility, very important for the different social services that it provides for women. The Cross Law Firm and the historic Riley Jones House. This is a building on the National Register in the Georgian Federal style. And you can see the plaques commemorating different historic preservation awards, as well as some history of the house itself. Other apartments restored nearby. And then looking further east, we're at the Open Door Health Center, critical care, critical community care with a lot of surface parking surrounding it. Howard Square Apartments just to the south. And some underperforming asphalt. Lots of opportunities for development land. Looking further east, we go to the intersection of Madison and Charles, occupied by Rallies and by 24-hour McDonald's. These two facilities are critical for delivering food to a lot of different people in this part of the town. It includes, however, a 1958 fully restored neon sign, as well as some more of our artists' series. Folks come from all over to see this sign because it's the last of its kind. We then blur into the Emily Kimbrough Historic District, where we have a number of historic homes and buildings and apartment buildings, some of which are lovingly restored and others are still in transition. We're now in the heart of East Charles neighborhood, also part of the Emily Kimbrough Historic District. This is a National Register Historic District that you can see on GIS mapping, as well as in National Register nominations, as well as the Shard database. So some of the homes that have been restored recently are quite exciting because they support a lot of great neighborhood amenities, including this daycare. Washington Park is a wonderful little passive park, not a small playground, but it's a nice patch of shade. And nearby is the Thomas Neely House, which is one of our finer restaurants in the city of Muncie. Very successful business recently. Other homes, modest homes, but do flank the park, and great presence there. Looking further east towards the St. Lawrence Catholic Church and Mid-City Plating, we see some available land around the church. So there is an opportunity for some housing, some infill, or extensions of community services as necessary. Quite a bit of land here to look at before we get re-enter the industrial zone. The rectory and the abbey flank two sides of the church. The church is a wonderfully imposing and tall steeple, which you can see from several neighborhoods around. Beautiful church. Dates from latter part of the 1800s, 1893 to be exact. And so the church really has stable presence here. So we've got a small Catholic store for gifts and religious accoutrements. The former high school is nearby as well. Other historic homes are nearby, and so this portion of the district has both intact historic homes as well as a lot of additional opportunity. Former high school serves as a St. Vincent de Paul store. There is the Deacon's Pantry, which delivers food. Mid-City Plating is a intact industrial building. The former high school, though, does include the St. Vincent de Paul as well as our Muncie Soup Kitchen, which had to make some different changes during COVID-19, and that all the food had to be made to go. And then there was a large underutilized surface lot to the east, where Charles Street basically terminates. It terminates at Beacon Street, a lot of land here looking back to the church, a lot of land here to redevelop, and where we end our tour.